A truck owner named Sean said something in our comments that stopped us cold. He said this country is heading the way of Cuba, where people drive ancient cars because that is all they can afford. And he is not wrong. When new trucks are pushing $80,000 and dealerships are quietly killing off the computer modules that keep older trucks breathing, American owners are being backed into a wall. But blue-collar mechanics are not rolling over. They are pulling off the most defiant move in the history of the American garage. Today we are pulling back the curtain on what insiders are calling the Carburetor Rebellion. We are breaking down why mechanics are deliberately tearing out federally mandated computers, wiring harnesses, and emission systems from their trucks, and dropping in pure analog crate engines in their place. And more importantly, we are going to expose why the EPA and state regulators are working overtime to make this mechanical survival strategy a federal crime. To understand what is driving this rebellion, you have to go back to the moment electronic fuel injection became standard equipment. When electronic fuel injection became widespread in the late 80s and early 90s, the industry treated it like a revolution. Better fuel economy, cleaner cold starts, and smoother operation at idle. The sales pitch was hard to argue with, but underneath that promise was a hidden time bomb. The entire system depended on a tangle of fragile sensors, hundreds of feet of copper wiring, and an engine control module acting as the nervous system. For the first decade, things held together, but the engineers in Detroit never designed those wiring harnesses to survive 30 years of abuse. The plastic connectors get brittle and crumble when you touch them. The wire insulation cracks and splits from years of engine heat. And to make it worse, automakers started using soy-based wire insulation that essentially sends an open invitation to every rodent within a mile to come chew through your main harness. Chasing down an intermittent electrical fault, a corroded ground, or a parasitic drain in a 25-year-old electronic fuel injection harness is the kind of job that breaks experienced mechanics. And when that proprietary engine computer finally gives up, or the mass airflow sensor dies, and the dealership stamps the replacement part as discontinued, your advanced electronic fuel injection system becomes a very expensive paperweight. Your truck is dead, and the dealership holds the only key. So what are the smart owners doing? They are refusing to play by those rules. When a factory engine fails or the electronics become too expensive to chase, mechanics are making a radical call. They are yanking the entire wiring harness out of the engine bay and sending it straight to the scrap pile. They are cutting the cord to the modern automotive world. Early 2000s Ford Rangers are getting 302 V8 engines pulled from 1980s Mustangs and dropped straight in. Chevy Silverados are having their computerized V6 engines ripped out in favor of classic 350 small blocks. The brain of the truck is being surgically removed. Now, any master mechanic will tell you that pulling the engine control module out of a truck from 2000 sets off a chain reaction. Delete the engine control module and your electronically controlled automatic transmission, whether that is a GM 4L60E or a Ford 4R70W, loses all reference points. It locks into maximum line pressure and goes straight to limp mode. But the mechanics doing these swaps are not stopping there. Those transmissions go in the trash too. They are bolting in fully hydraulic units like the TH350 or the 700R4 directly to the crate engine, or dropping in a heavy-duty manual transmission with an actual clutch pedal. They are stripping 40 pounds of plastic and useless copper wire out of the engine bay. When the job is done, that engine runs on exactly 3 wires. One for the starter, one for the alternator, one for the ignition coil. Why would a skilled mechanic intentionally go backward? Because a carburetor runs on pure physics. It does not need a silicon chip or a single line of code to do its job. It relies on engine vacuum and the Venturi effect to draw fuel into the cylinders based on the physical speed of air moving through it. There is no electronic throttle body waiting to throw you into limp mode. There is no software update required to keep it running. There are no oxygen sensors feeding data back to a computer that decides how lean to run your fuel mixture. As viewer P8T5 Turbo pointed out in the comments, if a carburetor gasket fails on a dirt road in the middle of nowhere, you can trace a replacement from a cereal box, cut it out with a pocket knife, bolt everything back together, and drive home. Go ahead and try that with a fried motherboard. When you drop a carbureted V8 and a mechanical transmission into a stripped engine bay, you achieve something the modern auto industry has spent decades trying to eliminate. You have a truck with a comfortable, modern body on the outside and an analog heart underneath that cannot be hacked, cannot be tracked, and cannot be switched off remotely. But that level of mechanical independence is exactly what regulators are determined to shut down. Attempt this swap today, and you are walking straight into a legal minefield. The Environmental Protection Agency and state-level bodies like the California Air Resources Board have drawn a hard line. Under federal emissions tampering statutes, removing emissions control devices from a vehicle is illegal. Swapping an older, unregulated engine into a newer chassis for on-road use is strictly prohibited. If your truck came from the factory with oxygen sensors, a catalytic converter, and an OBD2 port, the federal government requires that it leave the road with every single one of them still attached. In states running strict inspections, rolling into a testing station with a 4-barrel Holley carburetor sitting where the plastic intake manifold used to be means an automatic failure. Your registration gets denied. The government informs you that your own property is illegal to operate on public roads. To survive this regulatory chokehold, mechanics are being forced to get creative with the law. They are registering these swapped trucks as farm vehicles, hunting down antique or classic license plates, or relocating their operations to rural counties that have rejected emissions testing entirely. Regulators will tell you this crackdown exists to protect the environment. But truck owners and mechanics understand what is really at stake: their mechanical independence. This is a fight over property rights, over who actually controls what you own. If the automaker holds the software keys to your engine, and the government dictates exactly which physical parts you are legally allowed to bolt onto it under threat of serious fines, did ownership actually transfer to you when you signed those papers? Or did you just take out a very expensive, heavily regulated lease? That regulatory squeeze is exactly why the true forever engines, the ones engineered before the computer mandates took effect in 1996, are climbing in value every single year. Mechanics are hunting Chrysler 225/6 engines like they are buried treasure. They are pulling Ford 300 Inline Sixes out of rotting farm equipment. They are buying up every small block Chevy built before 1986 that they can locate. These are the untouchable engines, the ones that were grandfathered in before the rules changed. They are immune to any mandate requiring embedded surveillance sensors, and no forced over-the-air software update will ever brick them in a parking lot. The auto industry and the federal government want you trapped. They want to make the $80,000 digital truck your only legal option by making it financially and legally exhausting to keep your analog truck running. They want self-reliance treated as a violation, but the American aftermarket does not surrender. We are not just consumers, we are fabricators, problem solvers, and people who understand what a wrench is actually for. If they stop producing the computers, we will remove them. If they try to outlaw the hardware, we will find another way. Have you ever done a carburetor conversion or a full engine delete to escape a dying computer system? What state are you operating in, and how are emissions laws affecting your ability to keep your truck on the road? Drop it in the comments, because your experience is part of the survival manual the rest of us are writing in real time. If you refuse to hand your property over to the dealership cartel, hit subscribe and join the resistance. Keep turning your own wrenches. Stay off the digital grid. We will see you in the next one.